All right, so this week we are looking at parables. So, just a reminder that is an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. And we're going to be looking at the story of the parable of the weeds among the wheat. And we're seeing what did Jesus say about believers and unbelievers in the world. We're going to be in the book of Matthew, chapter 13. And the first question we're going to look at is where are believers and unbelievers found? Starting in verse 24, Jesus told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in the field. So right now the parable is taking place in a field, and the farmer or the sower is putting seed in his field, and all the seed is good. But there's also going to be then an enemy, which we see in verse 25. But while everyone was sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. So there's now in the ground good seed and weeds. And we see the meaning of this in verse 37 to 39. The one who sowed the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed stands for the people of the kingdom. The weeds are the people of the evil one, and the enemy who sows them is the devil. So we see right there the meaning of the seeds. And then we go back to verse 26. It says, when the wheat sprouted and formed heads, then the weeds also appeared. So believers and unbelievers live side by side in this world, and you might know people who are unbelievers in your life, and you still live side by side with them. So this is a picture of, you can see the good plants and then the weeds surrounding the wheat. What should believers not do to the unbelievers in this world? We look at verse 27 and 28. The owner's servants came to him and said, Sir, didn't you sow good seed in your field? Where did the weeds come from? An enemy did this, he replied. So the servants knew that he was only sowing good seed, but they were confused where the weeds came from. And the owner knew right away that it was an enemy. And the servants had asked, Do you want us to go and pull up the weeds? Then we see the answer in verse 29. No, he said, because while you are pulling the weeds, you may uproot the wheat with them. And if you've ever gone into a garden and pulled weeds out, sometimes you end up maybe pulling the good flowers out too. And this is what the owner did not want. We see then in verse 30. Let both grow together until the harvest. So the owner is saying, let them grow together until we harvest and have to pull both of them out. Believers should not try to get rid of unbelievers. Who will separate the believers from the unbelievers? We see in the second half of verse 30. At that time I will tell the harvesters, first collect the weeds and tie them in bundles to be burned. Then gather the wheat and bring it to my barn. And we see the meaning of this in verse 39. It says, the harvest is the end of the age or judgment day, and the harvesters are angels. So they're the ones that are going to bring people either to hell or to heaven. And then we see in verse 40 to 43, as the weeds are pulled up and burned in the fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will weed out of his kingdom everything that causes sin and all who do evil. They will throw them into the blazing furnace, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Whoever has ears, let them hear. On the last day, Jesus will send the unbelievers to hell and take the believers with him to heaven. So this is what it looks like when farmers bundle up their hay. So they've got or not their hay, their wheat. They bundle it up and put it into small bundles to take it to the farm. Believers and unbelievers will live together in the world until God judges them on the last day. Going through our worksheet, make sure you have your name on there. All right, and then it says complete the matching exercise. So the numbers are going to match with the letters below. So in the parable, who is the sower of good seed? We know that believers, not quite, um, they aren't the sower or the original person. We know that Jesus, though, is the sower of good seed. Going on is the good seed or the wheat. That actually is, though, the believers. They aren't the sower, but they are the good seed. So Jesus puts out the good seed, the believers. Going on is the field. So where the seeds live. Think about that as where we live is the world. Going on is the enemy. We can think of that. We know who our enemy is, and that is Satan. Who are the weeds? The weeds are the unbelievers that are going to try and destroy the good seed. Do you want us to pull up the weeds? So that question is, should we get rid of unbelievers? Should we pull them up and get rid of them out of our lives? Is F. Let the weeds grow with the wheat until the harvest. So that was the answer, is believers should not cut anyone's life short. They should let them live until the end time when Jesus comes. So that would be H. Don't cut anyone's time of grace to believe. We should give them a chance to get God's word in their lives. And then we see number 8 is the harvest, is the end of age or last day. Collect the weeds and burn them. So that's believers shine like the sun. No, unbelievers burn in hell. Yes. And then last one, let's just make sure it makes sense. Gather the wheat into the owner's barn. Believers shine like the sun in heaven. That does make sense. And ending on that A, I'd like you to put a smiley face, A plus, on your paper. And then you are all done with